welcome to the Untitled Anarchist Seagull channel, where we are peeling the onion of liberalism, but first we're going to start out with a bit of Inkulinati, the weirdest, most medieval turn-based strat game I've ever heard of, anyway. Let me see. Because of Prozoro. Let's stick that over here. Hello, Adam. How you doing? Just make sure. Yeah, that looks good. Going to rematch. Oh, what are you having? Okay, move over to that ink blot. Let me just make sure. Oh! That, if I remember correctly, is actually from around here. Yeah, start it. Alright. And let's get some armor on there. Oh, I thought it was... Oh, okay. Somehow I thought it was Cincinnati. Okay, let's take care of him first.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That's a good start we're getting off to. Now we just have to... Why do they just keep kicking that shit over? That's so pointless. I mean, that actually sounds like they're just kind of passing on a move to let me do some shit. And I have no objection to that. Quite happy with my new setup here. Okay. The ones you really gotta watch out for are these dickheads here in the funny hats. They are a menace. Okay. Okay, that's one down. Oh shit. That was the exact opposite of how that was supposed to go. Okay. Have to protect her from getting kicked into the flames. Because that's what did for me last time. There we go. One beer that I was actually quite surprised is actually brewed here is... A few years ago I found out Sam Adams is brewed here. Which, I mean, everything about that just, their, like, whole branding says New England, so I guess I should have just assumed that it probably wasn't brewed anywhere near there. I have some Sapporo cooling upstairs. Okay, out of these, guess we'll take this. Nah, not giving you a quill. Okay. And it is time to face Hildegard. And I still don't have the guitar-wielding demon. I mean, skeleton. Which annoys me, because that is kind of central to my entire strat for playing this game. Thinking, after what I said at the end of the stream last night, about just the way these two layers of liberalism we're watching on that Vush video. I finally was able to put something into words that I've been trying to come up with a good way to say for quite some time. See, I mean, there's this whole concept, and it's actually quite controversial in sociology, called the bystander effect. This idea that people see other people near something, and so therefore they don't do anything about it. Or something like that. That's not a great summary of it, but for these purposes. For these purposes, I think it more or less works. Because I was thinking that when you get down to it, liberalism has managed to generate a bystander effect in us for shit that directly affects us. You know, not a bystander effect as a, you know, when you're something that you just, you know, something you see and as you're walking past or something like that. That would be bad. But we have this, like, bystander effect around the things that are, in fact, directly affecting us. And that's fucked up. In fact, probably kind of deadly. We should probably do something about that. Because, I mean, you look at every discussion, all these, like, existential level crises we're dealing with, the pandemic, the whole trans-genocide thing, a fucking, you know, fascism having, triumphed after being defeated at the ballot box, in true Aaron Sorkin fashion. And, yeah, and not to mention climate change, which, I mean, the IPCC must just feel they're being ghosted at this point. Just totally fucking ghosted. Because each time they send out these reports saying, you know, this is urgent, we really absolutely have to do something about it, and we have to do it in short order, or things are going to be extremely bad, and fuck all happens. And they just put out another of them. So, you know, just as, you know, Biden has been celebrating the fact that he's broken oil extraction records, which is a great thing to brag about in the middle of a fucking climate crisis. I mean, wonderful guy. Can see why, Politics Girl, whoever the hell that is, and I feel like I really ought to look that up, because I feel like she looks like somebody I feel like I heard of someplace or something. She looks vaguely familiar. But, yeah. I mean, you can see why she's so taken with him. Because, like, on every single one of the key crises we're dealing with, he just sort of, like, maybe says something on Twitter. Like, I mean, like, his whole trans rights protection policy was amazing, where he went on Twitter and said, yeah, I got your back, and it's like, you need to do more than that in order to have somebody's back. That's not how that works. You don't just fucking say it. Yeah, and the result is, people kind of look for salvation from on high, despite the fact that there very clearly isn't any coming. And if we just kind of realized that and just acknowledged it, that would be the first step towards actually maybe trying to sort this shit out. But instead, we've got this whole thing where it's like, well, we need to talk to our elected officials or whatever. And it's like, our elected officials aren't doing shit. They don't give a fuck. Their entire strategy is just flooding the place with cops. So that is so that they can sort of contain the storm that will be brewing when people actually realize how on our own we actually are in all this stuff, and that the only way that we actually can get out, can make it out of any of this does not involve keeping these pricks in power. But yeah, so liberalism has bystander effect. That was my sort of epiphany of last night. Oh, she's already healed herself. See, she understands that you just gotta take matters into your own hands sometimes. Okay. There we go. Yeah, and if they kill Explodey Head there, or Albrecht as he's apparently called, then he explodes, causes this little cauldron of beans to explode as well, and she gets a bit of that too. So it's kind of a perfect storm as far as I'm concerned. Perfect. See? I'm actually quite okay with that outcome. Allentown, Pennsylvania. I knew a really annoying person from Allentown, Pennsylvania when I was in university, in my first year. I hear it's a ghastly right-wing sort of place. Hello, Phoenix. Yeah. Well, a lot of that comes down to people not understanding what is actually meant by the term climate tipping points. Yeah, and thinking that it's a singular thing, when actually there are lots of them. Oh yeah, ghastly is a great word. Exactly. And of course, saying that there's nothing that can be done is a great way. I mean, we've seen this with the pandemic as well. You know, you say that we've just reached a point where nothing can be done, and that's just really handy because that means that once again we're not going to do anything. You know, the people who told us that we didn't need to do anything then turn around and say, yeah, well, nothing can be done now. Oh, it's the Lehigh Valley I'm thinking of, then. Must be. Yeah, I mean, there's a reason that defeatism is such a popular theme in propaganda directed against enemy armies in war. And it's because it's actually, it works. If you want to convince somebody not to actually do anything, not to take any kind of action, it's the best thing to do is to relieve them of any sense of moral obligation to do anything by just saying there's nothing to be done. I don't know where I heard that. I just heard that a long time ago. And the one person I ever encountered from the Lehigh Valley did not actually dispel that particular belief. Oh, I'm gonna win this one. Yeah, if there's air in your lungs, there's still hope, I think is a good one. There we go. That's that sorted. Have I forgotten about actus jaculatoriae on the eve of battle? Yeah, I think probably anyone who has any awareness of all the shit that's going on and some kind of conscience regularly feels bad that they either can't or don't do more. Oh, healing explosions are wonderful. Love healing explosions. Finally! I've been waiting for that guy. They kept me waiting for a long time to get him. That funny hat motherfucker is central to my plan to win. Well, I think the key is to just think of the things that we all, can do. There's no sense getting all that, beating oneself up over the stuff that we can't do. If you can't do it, you can't do it. Yeah, but you just sort of think of the things that are possible and try to do them, and even if it doesn't seem like much, it's something. Okay, and now I'm going to face off with death. The resurrection. I'm trying to bring back the Master. That is the premise of the game. The Master died during a party, and I'm supposed to be resurrecting him. And finally, we can do this the way I like to. Do my kind of dancing with a great partner. The guitar-wielding skeleton with the fucked-up hat. Drop that link in the Discord again, and I will drop that link in the chat, amongst other things. Okay, here we go. Oh, these are the... I always find this layout particularly complicated. Okay, him. And him. Snitch. Yeah, and of course you do, and there's nothing... I mean, one of the more insidious bits of capitalist propaganda is this idea that somehow, we should somehow feel bad about spending, what we do have occasionally on things that we just enjoy. Like, that's somehow something fundamentally wrong. Because we're supposed to be, like, saving up for the fucking house that's just one piece of avocado toast away or some bullshit. Okay. Fucking hell. I was so busy rearranging windows that I forgot which windows I was trying to rearrange, and just ended up in an endless loop of rearranging windows. Like, I mean, there's a great Marx quote on this. Let me find it. I'm gonna read this Marx quote in a second. The less you eat, drink, and read books, the less you go to the theater, the dance hall, the public house, the less you think, love, theorize, sing, paint, fence, etc., the more you save, the greater becomes your treasure which neither moths nor dust will devour, your capital. The less you are, the more you have. The less you express your own life, the greater is your alienated life. The greater is the store of your estranged being. When he decided to be poetic, he really managed it. Okay, anyone I can target right now? Okay, yeah, get him. Okay. I mean, all of these fucking money-saving advice articles, it's basically how you can save a whopping $200 a quarter by making your life absolutely suck.
Whoa.
Ooh, okay. This is why this guy is so central to my strat. Because he can take out like 6 of them at once. When you bring the pilgrim to the shrine, and A ends his turn there, either the tiny Inkulinati or the strongest character loses 5 health. Yeah, exactly. It's like... I mean, if you wanted to give some real money-saving advice that actually doesn't make your life suck, it would be stuff like, here's a cafe where your credit's good. I'll tell you, that's one of the best one of the best things that you can have is a cafe where they will actually run a tab for you. Absolutely, I just love that shit. I had one of those for a long time. I could just pay once a week or whenever I could or whatever, and they were fine with that. And it allowed me a certain budgeting flexibility that I needed. Ah, excellent. Let me find that. Gonna... Oh, THC sounds nice. And she adds... Okay, there we go.
Oh.
Oh. What was the point of that? Oh. Oh, yes, because he gains health when one of his beasties dies. That's right. Oh. That's a pity. Oh, I lost my explodey head. You don't have a PayPal by any chance, do you?
Whoa.
So I don't have those other ones. Oh, okay, he's only got 2 left. Okay, this is gonna go quickly now. So I'm gonna finish this and then we're gonna move on, and I think I'm gonna, unless there's some strong objections, continue with the video we were watching yesterday. Which is just the onion of liberalism. Vosh's liberalism being offended by, Karen from I'd like to talk to your manager's liberalism. Yep, if you send me that, I will just send you something in just a second. Yeah, we're taking all and action. What's this? Oh, medium ink blot is good. What do we got? Bellow wielding devil. And yeah, if you drop me your PayPal, I was gonna send you something. I figured that would be quicker than... Oh, okay. Well, let's see, we've got a bunch of others here. Okay, we've got, Caleb Muppet goes on... yeah, they were very punchable. Sums up the, white rage against the war, the white nationalist, fake anti-war demo. We've also got pro-Putin sympathizer comes on to yell at me for 3 hours from Fush. Yeah, we already saw... We've got... This is extremely important, watch or else. Is Kurzgesagt billionaire propaganda a debate? Which, I can actually shorten that debate. It is. They take money from the fucking Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Lori Lightfoot's horrible loss for the left. Or, it turns out the Taliban hate working 9-to-5 desk jobs. Any of those speak to you? In that sort of syrup of ipecac way that we were talking about here? Oh, there's January 6th, political prisoners, and peaceful transition to socialism. Oh, definitely. Let's see. Well, there's Xander Hole watching Destiny obliterate Adin Ross and Andrew Tate debate. And there's new Why I Left the Left just dropped. I'm kind of gravitating towards January 6th political prisoners' peaceful transition to socialism. So I feel like that's gonna have some pretty high grade bullshit in it. Yeah, that's the one that I'm really kind of gravitating towards. Because he just goes mask offer, more mask off every time I look.
Oh, here's this.
Hang on, I gotta turn record on. And if you link the PayPal, Phoenix, I was going to send you something. No hurry, just whenever you have a second. Oh yeah, I need to go in OBS, Boczny Sнимania.
Oh, here's this. Here's this. We'll talk about January 6th. Have you seen the revelations? Tucker Carlson, I'm not going to show him on here, but you can go look at him. It's amazing.
No thanks.
They lied about January 6th.
Well, I mean, if Tucker Carlson says so. Oh, that's what happened. Hell.
The guy with the horns, right? The buffalo head or whatever.
Yeah, Nazi Chewbacca.
The police were like his tour guides.
Well, no shit, that isn't a revelation. We knew that from the start. People were saying that on the day that the cops let them in. I said that on the day because it was obvious. How's this a fucking revelation? I mean, what's the revelation? Yeah, the cops like it. The cops supported the fash, as they do. That's kind of one of the ways that you can tell that the fash aren't the fucking force of subversion that you'd like to make them out to be, Caleb.
Watch the video. They're taking him around the Capitol. They try to open doors for him.
No shit!
The police escort people into the building.
Yes, we knew that! We fucking knew that. That's why the fucking January 6th investigative committee in Congress was such a joke. Because it did not look at all at the role of the cops, or to the extent that it did, it lionized the cops who are these fucking heroes. When the fact is, if DC Metro PD hadn't actually escorted them to the Capitol, rather than mass arresting them the way they normally do with protests, with like legit protests that aren't made up of white nationalists, the January 6th would not have happened. It would have just been a bunch of fascists getting arrested.
It's, I mean, utterly amazing what they've revealed. Furthermore,
like
the evidence.
It's utterly amazing that this is the first he's apparently heard about it, actually.
Informants having made the Capitol riot what it was is massive.
Again, is this really a shock? The fucking leader of the Proud Boys at the time had just been publicly exposed as a Fed. Okay. Which did not in any way stop them carrying out numerous serious assaults and attempted murders throughout the country. Because the feds are kind of cool with that. The cops and the feds are cool with fash doing fash shit because the cops are fash. I mean, he's just... we're watching him learn. We're watching his learning curve right now. This is neat. He didn't know.
All kinds of evidence has come to show that the Capitol riot was very much staged by the government. I mean, that's, look at the facts. Tucker Carlson says it, and
well, if Tucker Carlson says it, it's definitely a fact.
Look, I have always said on these streams, that is the Center for Political Innovation. We have always called.
Remember, the Center of Political Innovation actually expelled him. So he set up a brand new Center for Political Innovation, which he incorporated in a different state since he was expelled from the one that already is on the books in New York. So there are two Centers for Political Innovation right now.
Always called for a blanket amnesty of all black liberation fighters. Mumia Abu-Jamal should be released.
Well, that isn't even a matter of amnesty. I mean, yes, But that wasn't about that's not. You don't need an amnesty to do that. He fucking didn't do what they accused him of. Their case was just a bunch of absolutely ridiculous lies, and every one of them at this point has been completely exposed. And if they had been even remotely honest at the time with the jury and the judge in the trial, in his first trial, he would have been acquitted. In fact, he wouldn't have been charged in the first place. That's not a matter for an amnesty, really. He just didn't do the shit. Amnesty is when you did. And, I mean, yeah, an amnesty, I'm all for it. But, I mean, a lot of the time, these are bullshit charges that these people are in on. And that needs to be recognized, too.
Also.
See, fun fact about the Chemical Weapons Convention. It very specifically says that it's okay to use chemical weapons against one's own civilian population. It specifically says that there are a whole list of chemical weapons that it's a war crime to use against an enemy army, but that it's perfectly okay to use them against your civilian population.
Also known as H. Rap Brown, he should be released. All the former members of the Black Liberation Army.
Yeah, the Black Panthers, Mumia, Asada Shakur, and Nazi Chewbacca. Like, I'm sure they love being named in the same sentence.
All of them should be released. All right? And because we know about COINTELPRO,
What we know about COINTELPRO is that they didn't do it to fascists.
And how the U.S. government killed Fred Hampton. How the U.S. government...
Notice they killed Fred Hampton. They didn't fucking kill, like, the head of the KKK. They didn't kill, George Lincoln Rockwell. They leave the fascists alone. They die of natural causes, or they kill each other, as happened to that prick Frank Ancona in Missouri, who got killed by his son, and then another, like, leader of a local Klan organization then celebrated it. Yeah, I mean, there's so little interest in state assassinations of fascists that the fascists have to just kill each other. So yeah.
Engaged in all kinds of frame-ups and criminal activities. They sent Geronimo Pratt to prison for years when he was innocent. Based on every evil thing, all the evil the American government did during the 1970s, there needs to be a blanket amnesty for Black liberation fighters. And for, all the Weathermen, the May 19th Communist Organization, the Revolutionary Task Force, Black Liberation Army that...
and all of this is just, that's just, these are things that I think pretty much any, like, decent person would, who is, aware of the situation, ought to support. There's, no quarrel here, but what's ridiculous is that he's comparing, that he's somehow trying to equate these people who put their lives on the line in order to fight against, like, the white supremacy in the capitalist system with people who took basically no meaningful risk in support of white supremacy and the capitalist system. A lot of whom, he's talking about informants, but the thing is, a substantial number of the people who showed up and went into the fucking Capitol on January 6th were literal cops. And not just, like, beat cops, like some deputy chiefs were in there. And if we're going to talk about interesting revelations, like, look at we know where a lot of them were staying, and it's one of the most, I forget which one it was, but it was, like, one of the most expensive hotels in D.C. Like, there was some serious money behind this, and especially when you consider that it wasn't the first time they came to D.C. They had repeatedly shown up over that previous month to just terrorize the Black communities there. And the only reason I even know about it is that I follow DC Antifa, and they were reporting on it, because local liberals were saying, no, don't defend your community against them. The way you fight Nazis is you vote for Joe Biden.
We obviously don't endorse what these people did. We are
Wait a second. Okay, we're gonna have to have a look at that again. Is he saying that he doesn't endorse what the Panthers and like the Weathermen and stuff did? Like, who's he saying he doesn't endorse? I mean, is he? Yeah, there we go. Sent you a little something, Phoenix. Hope it helps. Okay, and now I gotta get back and see this shit. Because I think it's about to get wild.
Task Force, Black Liberation Army, that we obviously don't endorse what these people did. We are opposed to any ultra-left adventurism, terrorism. We don't know that all these people are guilty, right? We don't know the details of their cases, but regardless...
Oh, okay, this is fun, because his whole thing, for the longest time, was that he would not disavow any anti-imperialist, no matter what they did. Anyone he considered anti-imperialist. So here, in this video, where he's clearly about to ask for amnesty for the white nationalists from January 6th, many of whom were fucking cops, he's actually condemning the Black Liberation Army, the Weathermen, a bunch of actually, I think pretty much all of them. I don't know huge amounts of detail about the BLA, but it would surprise me. It would absolutely shock me if they weren't within a reasonable definition of anti-imperialist right there. But he's throwing them under the bus, but saying, yeah, but we should...
Based on the facts that there was a huge amount of the violation of rights of Americans during that period, we call for a blanket amnesty. And that includes...
Who's we?
Leonard Peltier. All right, Leonard Peltier is a Native American activist. The evidence seems to indicate he did not kill those FBI agents in the shootout. It was friendly fire from other FBI agents who killed them. The other Native Americans who were arrested were acquitted in federal court. So they need to free Leonard Peltier, the Native American.
Yeah, and again, what's this have to do with the fucking January 6th white nationalists?
American activist. They ought to free him. And I have always said this. You can go find an article. It might even still be on the internet. I don't know. They've done a lot to erase me from history.
I think they've done a lot to erase him from history. I think that's actually Caleb realizing that some of his earlier stuff was a little bit spicier than even he likes to be now.
Leonard Peltier, FBI.
I've never had trouble finding his shit.
At my college, I remember years ago when I was a college student. The FBI had a recruitment workshop at my college, and we protested the FBI recruitment workshop, and I actually, yeah, there is evidence of it. Here we go.
Oh wow. I mean, this guy it's one thing to talk about all the shit you do right now. I mean, that's already a little bit much sometimes. But all his leftist cred comes from protests he went to, 15 years ago. And he's like, yeah, I protested the FBI recruitment event when I was in college, when I was working at the sandwich shop. What is this, 20 years ago?
Here we go. Yeah, I'm finding the old article. Here we go. Wow, this is wild. Here is the old article. I think I found it, right? From years ago when the FBI, yeah, here we go. Cleveland Fist protests FBI, November 5th, 2009. Me, my girlfriend, a local Native American activist, and an old...
I mean, the real shock here is that he had a girlfriend.
Boomer. We protested outside of the FBI recruitment workshop at my college, right?
Oh, wow.
In support of Leonard Peltier.
You fucking hero.
And that was something, right? And you can read the
My
article
hero.
about it. But the FBI came to my campus to recruit, and we had an information sheet. We passed out over 200 leaflets with an info sheet about COINTELPRO. I've been doing this.
Well, he knows how many leaflets they passed out when he had a protest. When he who's he impressing with this? I mean, usually I have to say, like, even if I were inclined to just sort of big note myself with protests and shit I did 20 years ago, I wouldn't. Because I have to say, I actually cringe a little bit at how liberal my takes were at the time. So I wouldn't even if I were the sort to do that. Whereas his only leftist cred comes from shit he did, 10, 15 years ago.
This stuff for years. I have been doing this stuff for years. My credentials as a leftist, as an anti-imperialist, are massive, right?
Then why are they all so dusty? If they're so massive, why is it's always like, here's some shit I did back in 2006?
So when the FBI came to my college campus in 2009 to recruit people, we protested them and revealed the history of COINTELPRO. Right? And I have always called for
They revealed the history of COINTELPRO. Wow, nobody knew about COINTELPRO until Caleb Muppet and his girlfriend and an unnamed Native American activist passed out 200 leaflets in front of an FBI recruitment event at his university.
Freedom of Leonard Peltier. I've always called for the freedom of the Black Liberation Army. There needs to be a blanket amnesty for all those people. Folks, this is not something that a lot of leftists are going to want to hear, but I don't care. At this point, I don't care.
Oh, wow. But this is not something that a lot of leftists are even the target audience for.
We need to add the January 6th defendants to that list.
Fuck you.
We need to call for a blanket amnesty for all the January 6th protesters. Buffalo Head,
why?
Whatever his name
Nazi Chewbacca is his name.
Shaman, let him go. Right? All of them. Oath keep.
And let me just say, just to give you an idea of how the differential of treatment when you're a white nationalist in prison. I remember a news story that came out shortly after Nazi Chewbacca got arrested about how, for religious reasons, he could only eat organic food. Okay? And the prison just went along with that. They got him all organic food. Meanwhile, there are people who are being deliberately fed pork and shit just because they asked for kosher and halal food. Just, are, being forced to, being fed meat, specifically because they asked for, vegan food or vegetarian food. But fucking Nazi Chewbacca, Caleb Maupin's hero, apparently, he asks for all organic food, and they just went along with it. And it's like, okay, I mean, I'm not saying they shouldn't, just to be clear. Prison food is an absolute disgrace, and prisons shouldn't exist, first of all. But as long as they do, they ought to be providing decent food, and they ought to be respecting people's fucking dietary restrictions. So I'm not saying that at all. I just can't help notice that it's very one-sided.
Keepers, all of them. It was a sting operation. It is now a fact.
It isn't. It's a fact because Tucker Carlson said something. That makes it a fact.
It's a fact that the government set up that event. All of those people need to be released.
He hasn't even actually provided evidence of it. All he did was say something that we already knew, which is that the cops let him through. But the thing is, that's what the cops do wherever fascists show up. You go to Portland, the cops actually saw that Nazis had set up a sniper nest in the middle of town, about 100 feet over a place where anti-fascist protesters were expected to be marching. They went up there, they saw it, and they just let him do it. This is, that's conspiracy to fucking murder right there. If it were leftists doing that, it would have been conspiracy to murder and they would have been done for it. But, the cops let that happen. That doesn't mean it's a sting operation. It means that cops and fash rarely clash.
All of them. Blanket amnesty. Let the Black Panthers out. Let the Weather Underground people out. Let Leonard Peltier out. Let the January 6th people out.
I mean, just let it... I really hope somebody manages to tell one of the incarcerated Black Panther POWs who's still in prison, or maybe there have been a couple who've just been released. Somebody shows him that. I'd like somebody to show one or two of them this video and see how they feel about being mentioned in the same sentence as the white nationalist from January 6th. I'd love to see that.
Wow. You have to. I'm sorry. I'm not against the right wing. I'm
That's very clear. I don't think anyone doubts that at this point.
against the U.S. imperialist state. And
Well, those people are for the U.S. imperialist state. A lot of them worked for the fucking U.S. imperialist state. They were literal cops.
these people got fucked by the U.S. imperialist state because they were aligned with a president that the pro-war lobby didn't like.
Except the pro-war lobby actually kind of liked Trump because Trump didn't actually do anything they didn't want. In fact, actually, a lot of neo-Nazis got pissed off with him because they were shocked that he was just following the same foreign policy that basically every U.S. president since World War II follows. Because that's just how it works. There's just very little diversity in that particular area, even compared to the very narrow range of variation that you have in any other area.
They need to be released. Period. It's that simple. Now, I know if you want to play this left-right game, well,
This left-right game. Yeah, okay, this is really hardcore. I mean, we're getting into some very traditional fash apologetics. This idea, people will be like, the false left-right paradigm. And then the next thing you know, they're going to be talking about third position, which is some Nazi shit.
racist, Caleb. They're racist.
Well, yes, they are. They are that thing. In fact, that was the reason that they were there that day, because the whole purpose was to be racist.
Probably. They're anti-communist. Of course they are.
Well, yeah.
don't care.
Why do you should care? You should care because there's a difference.
I don't care. The U.S. deep state set a trap for these people.
No, they didn't.
Framed them up. And now they're in jail.
This is so great. I mean, this is deep. Because what happened was the cops, because they actually are okay with Nazis, decided to just let them through. They would never have done that for anyone else. We all know that. They never would have done that for leftists. They never would have done that. Like, if Black Lives Matter made a serious attempt to get to the Capitol, we'd be hearing fucking there would have been terrorism charge brought against them. Which nobody has done to the January 6th fuckers. It's worth noting. That has not happened. So the cops actually helped them get in, helped them approach the Capitol in the first place. And so they did not, so they had absolutely no difficulty doing that. And then the fact that the cops helped them out, as is their habit when it comes to fascists, is then used as proof that they were set up. Fuck off. I mean, the thing about these sting operations that the feds do, I mean, is that you can tell the true mark of them is that nothing actually happens. And that's why they get done for conspiracy charges. And not for doing things, because the whole thing's set up. So by the time they actually are about to do something, they get arrested.
They've been taken away from their families. These are fathers. These are mothers. These are, children who need to see their parents. Let them out. I don't.
These are the people who he hasn't said a word about Cop City. Oh, wait a second. I don't know if that's fair. What's the date? When was 13 days ago. When? Does anyone know when the... Let me just check. Cop City protesters terrorism charge. When was that? March 9th. Yeah, okay, so that had already happened. That had already happened when he made this video. And he's not said a single word about them. They're facing terrorism charges for having gone to a protest and written a legal aid phone number on their arm. And for having the gall to be there to witness cops just murder one of them. And he's not saying a word about that. That is an actual outrage.
That we should be allowing the U.S. government. They should free all the Muslim political prisoners who've been framed up. All of them should be freed. You know, informants who go into mosques and they get somebody on making a joke, let them out. I am for a blanket.
No, I mean, what he just said, that's real. In fact, some of these mosques have gotten restraining orders against these informants just because they kept on harassing everybody on there trying to get somebody to go along with these cockamamie bullshit schemes.
Amnesty for all political prisoners. There should be no political prisoners in America. As long as we have a government that works for Wall Street, that works for the Pentagon, that works for the big banks and
the Pentagon is the government. The government doesn't work for the Pentagon. The Pentagon is a literal part of the government.
Corporations and military contractors. As long as we have a Wall Street monopolist regime, they should not be able to jail people for their political views, right? This is a dictatorship of capital that we live under. This is a...
Well, yes, and the people that you're talking about are fine with that.
Capitalist dictatorship, and it is our job as anti-imperialists to weaken it. So we need to demand, as revolutionaries, as...
How does that weaken it, though? Because these people are actually acting... I mean, the way fascists operate, and this is not just the U.S. I'm talking about. You can see this in Germany, you can see this continental Europe in general, Britain, Ireland in particular. The way fascists work, the way their entire strategic concept operates at this point, and going back for about like 30-odd years now, they're not any kind of subversive force. They think they are. But actually, their strategy means that all they really are just sort of a deniable police auxiliary who can mete out terror to people the state doesn't like, and then the state gets to say that they had nothing to do with it. That's what we're talking about. These people are not... releasing these people does not weaken the state. In fact, the state does not want to hold these people for the most part.
Anti-imperialists, a blanket amnesty for all the January 6th protesters. Not that we endorse what they did. Look, we've seen what people did in videos. If they actually did that, wasn't cool. We don't encourage, just like we don't support what the Weathermen did. The Weathermen shouldn't have done what they did, right? We left adventurous terrorism isn't good. You know, the Black Liberation Army, we don't endorse their activities either. But the context
Who's this
what
we?
the Black Liberation Army did was COINTELPRO, was the murder of Fred Hampton, was lies and murder and killing by the U.S. government. And the context of what these people did on January 6th was the same thing. FBI informants set them up. It was a sting.
No, they didn't.
We have to release them. And if we're really against the state, I don't care if you're against the right wing. If you're really against the state, you should agree with me. You should agree with me, right?
Yeah, well, that assumes that you're really against the state. And counterpoint, you're not really against the state.
You know, and I don't care. I don't care.
Yeah, somebody, even his chat is giving a pushback. It said January 6ers want to murder communists. Yeah, I mean, that's true.
Sixers want to murder communists. Yeah, you know why? Because they think communists are Joe Biden.
No, they actually want to murder communists because they think communists are communists, and they are fucking anti-communists. They are fascists.
You know, and if I thought communists were Joe Biden, I would want to murder communists too, right?
Well, imagine how people must feel if they think communists are Caleb Moppet. I mean, I have to say, as a communist, I'm not actually thrilled to have somebody putting it out there that communists are Caleb Moppet.
mean, they think communists are the kind of people who get on the internet and try to destroy people's lives because they tweeted wrong about gender, right? I mean, if I thought Joe Biden was a communist, if I might have the similar anger, but I don't think that, right? That's the point, right? These January 6ers are wrong, but they're against the state. And
no, they're not. Where do you get that they're against the state? All they wanted to do was, like, use intimidation in order to manipulate the result of an election. It was just, all it was the U.S. coup in Bolivia a few months earlier, but played with the fucking Benny Hill music in the background. That's all that was. There's nothing different. That doesn't make them against the state. They disagreed with a particular decision of the state.
Your woke left liberal kids aren't. They're not. Your woke left liberal kids are not against the deep state. These people were framed.
Oh, he's qualifying it now.
And they need to be released. Now, I don't agree with what they did. The activities that they engaged in were clearly criminal, but they took place.
Well, Biden, just to be fair, Biden did during his victory speech visibly uncomfortably use the word transgender as a list of people on his list of people who ought to be treated like humans. No thanks to him. He's like, yeah, gay, bi, lesbian, and transgender.
In the context of criminal activities by law enforcement, right?
These people, a lot of them were law enforcement. I mean, yes, it is criminal activities by law enforcement, but that's because a lot of these people were fucking cops.
Entrapment, you know, people have to understand. Have the government lock them up too, so it.
This is such nonsense. The idea is we're supposed to pretend that actually Nazis are the canaries in the mine shaft. I mean, they do this when big tech, one of these platforms, reluctantly enforce their TOS against some far right asshole because they said too many slurs a minute. They exceeded the maximum slurs per minute rate or something like that. And it's like, well, we gotta support them in this because otherwise they'll come after us. And it's like, they've been coming after us all the fucking long. They come after us much harder and much more enthusiastically than they ever come against pricks like the people on January 6th or the fucking Proud Boys or any of these assholes. Fucking in Portland, the cops actually fired an explosive round through a helmet and cracked somebody's skull in order to just retaliate for the fact that they were protesting against fascism. Okay? The state's actually not all that bothered about Nazis. They're more worried about the people. Ponowno powezywanie uspieszno. Okay. Let me know if I'm back. I mean, it looks like I'm back. Yeah, this is the second time I've had this problem with my connection this one. Okay. Let me know when you hear this. Excellent, I'm back.
They can do it to us. That's what people don't get.
Well, see, that's cute, because the thing is, if they do it to the far right, then they literally are doing it to his mob. But they've been doing it to us all along. That's why it's so easy to come up with a list of leftist political prisoners in the U.S. That's why his list, while somewhat longish, was nowhere near comprehensive. Even if you're restricting it to the political prisoners who've been in jail since the 70s, or have been, living as fugitives since then. The state is much more interested in targeting us than they ever will be in targeting these pricks. And that's despite the fact that the state's own statistics, you look at the Bureau of Justice Statistics, their figures on actual terrorism in the U.S. and what they say, and they've been saying it for years, because all they do is count what happens. The terrorist incidents that are attributable to Nazis are virtually the only terrorism that there is in the country. It's like 98 point something percent. And that's because they include these bullshit sting operations against Muslims, and that sort of muddies the water a little bit, but not enough, because overwhelmingly it's fascists doing this shit. But yet it's left, but yet all the money goes towards targeting Muslims, targeting environmentalists, so-called eco-terrorists, targeting leftists of all sorts. So this whole idea that there's a fucking slippery slope here, that Nazis are at the beginning of, that's just bullshit. We have been at the bottom of this slippery slope for a long time.
They don't understand that, the government doesn't sit there and go, okay, we're only going to lock up right-wingers today. If they can...
Well, no, I think we all understand that, because that's not what they do. What they do is they lock up basically everyone but the far right. They lock up everyone but fascists. I mean, that's the thing. Like, the Proud Boy, you look at these fascist rallies, going back to, like, 2015, 2016, and they averaged at least one attempted murder at each one. Like, somebody, like, pulled a knife and tried to attack somebody with it, or somebody drove their car at speed into a crowd and people just were fast enough scattering that nobody was hurt, or somebody actually shot somebody. And you just look at this number of people who actually went to jail after those rallies, and it's virtually all people who were on the anti-fascist side of them.
They can frame these people up. They can entrap them. If they can entrap them, they can entrap us, right?
Well, that's because you are them. That's literally the whole reason. That's the whole reason he even gives a shit about these pricks.
And that's why we have to call for a blanket amnesty. There should be no political prisoners.
Who's we?
Free the January 6th people.
It's still not a word about Cop City.
No, doesn't mean we endorse what they did, right? Doesn't even...
It sure sounds like you endorse what they did.
Mean that we say they're all innocent, right? I mean, clearly, some of them were clearly doing bad stuff. Obviously not. We oppose all illegal activity. We do not endorse what they did.
How the hell are you going to be communists and oppose all illegal activity? There is no legal way to get to communism. Let me just be clear about that. Because if you find a legal way, you know what happens? They make it fucking illegal. Any means to get to communism, to overthrow this disgusting capitalist system that we're, that is running the fucking planet into the ground on so many different levels, is inherently going to be illegal. Now, I mean, it's one thing, to say, oh, I'm not going to endorse any illegal activity, like, in that sense, where it's like, I'm not going to specifically endorse a specific illegal act, that could be used to, like, shut down a channel or something like that. That's not what he's saying. He's actually taking a principled line that whatever the fuck he's defining communism to be, he wants to achieve it exclusively through legal means. So, like, by fucking magic or something.
We do not endorse what they did. CPI is a completely legal organization. We're an educational organization. We're not even really an activist group. I mean,
Yeah, no, you're like you're not even really a group at this point, because you got kicked out and now it's kind of just you, isn't it?
Get on bullhorns here and there, but we do not endorse what they did. We don't endorse
bull
what the
something.
Did. We don't endorse what the Black Liberation Army did. What we're saying is, in the context of widespread illegal activity by the government, people need to be released. That we have a government of big corporations and monopolies, that is violating the rights of the citizens. And in this context, when it's clear these people were entrapped.
Yeah, but there are lots of people. There are lots of people whose release you could be calling for right now. And you specifically choose the white nationalists from January 6th. None of whom are facing anything resembling the kind of charges people are facing for just protesting Cop City. Let's just be clear. None of whom are facing the kind of charges that people were facing for defending the water at Standing Rock. Okay. Or just any number of things. There are people off of the fucking the George Floyd uprising who are facing decades in prison. And maybe, I mean, I haven't heard anything in a while, so some of them may have even been convicted, and he picks these assholes. These are the people he picks.
Set up, we call for a blanket amnesty. And please, this is another thing. I am so tired of people on the internet calling me a punk because I don't advocate violence. Like,
well, that's a new one. I never would have called him a punk. I mean, prog rock, maybe.
I'm sorry, advocating violence is illegal. Did you know that? First.
Oh, God.
This is another thing. I am so tired of people on the internet calling me a punk because I don't advocate violence. Like, I'm sorry, advocating violence is illegal. Did you know that? First of all, it's illegal. Now, if you're just going to do it on Twitter and you're nobody, they don't care. But if you're me,
well, I mean, you just said, if you're nobody, they don't care.
It's a little bit more illegal. If somebody like me were to do something, advocate violence, I would probably go to jail. But even...
Actually, it's not illegal to advocate violence in the U.S., it's worth noting. In the U.S., it is not illegal. It's Brandenburg versus Ohio. The only time it is illegal to simply advocate violence in the U.S. under existing First Amendment case law is if it is in a context where you are expecting imminent lawless action. And yeah, so actually you can say, I think the BLA had the right idea, and that's okay. I mean, that is not illegal to do. In fact, in the case in Brandenburg, Ohio, it was the guy Brandenburg was actually being charged for having given a speech advocating murder to a bunch of Klansmen with fucking guns. And of course, there's probably something to be said for the fact that it was Klansmen and not communists who were charged in that case. That probably had some effect on how it came out. But the result of that is the state of the law in the U.S. is that abstract advocacy for violence is not illegal. Not in the U.S. I don't call him a Fed either. I mean, maybe he is. I haven't seen any evidence of it. But, I mean, Fash, certainly. He's definitely Fash. And he's a bootlegger. He's a bootlicker of the best of them.
Even if I had total free speech to advocate violence, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it because serious revolutionaries don't. Right?
Yeah, I mean, if you remember... serious revolutionaries say, like, his, the guy he likes to stand on, who's that? Karl Marx. He famously said workers should give up any weapons they have to the capitalist class at the earliest opportunity.
Revolution
hey, Shakespeare.
only happen as an act of self-defense. Read the history.
Well, yeah, and that self-defense tends to involve violence. Because the thing is that when you have a revolution, when you constitute a genuine threat to the people in power, the people in power generally are going to use some violence to put a stop to that. That's generally how that works. And either you succeed and either you fight back, in which case there's more violence, but maybe but I mean, some of it's justified, of course, because you're defending yourself and trying to put a stop to this greater violence that's going on. Or you surrender, in which case there's it's just the state's violence that's going to continue going on. But I mean, the idea that you can advocate revolution of any kind, I mean, and he pretends to. Let's be clear, he does not. Yeah, and he will not. But he pretends to, then you can't just categorically, rule out the use of force in advance.
Of communism. Mao did not want to go up into the mountains with a gun. Mao didn't want to do that. Mao was part of the KMT government with Chiang Kai-shek. And then Chiang Kai-shek kicked him out of the government and started murdering communists, and they had to go to the countryside.
Well, yeah, and guess what? You know, what Mao did there, that was also illegal. I mean, just saying. And, you know, what the Chinese Communist Party did during the Japanese occupation, that was pretty illegal, too. And, I mean, so if we're going to just not ever say that we think that that illegal activities are good because of some complete misstatement of the state of the law in the United States, which is where he is, that's the jurisdiction he's talking about, then you just have to condemn all of it. You just basically have to condemn all the people he wraps himself in order to prove that he is actually a communist and not obviously just a little fash bootlicker.
And the peasants were already killing their landlords. There was in Hunan, there was already peasant uprisings. So in the context of being violently suppressed and the peasants already revolting, the communists joined the peasant uprising and led it.
Well, okay. But they did violence then, is the thing. They did violence. You're saying that there was a context to it. There was. But they did the thing you said not to do.
And then, when Japan invaded China, Mao joined a coalition with Chiang Kai-shek again. And then after the Second World War, Mao wanted to form a coalition government with Chiang Kai-shek again, and Chiang Kai-shek said no, and then they had another war. Mao never wanted to have a violent revolution.
Yeah, except I would be really kind of shocked if Mao, who rather famously said political power flows from the barrel of a gun, if he actually thought it was possible to have the revolution he wanted without there being any violence. I am not a Mao scholar by any means, and if somebody wants to point me to where he said, yeah, actually I thought that we could just ask nicely and then we'd win, then, I mean, please do, but I will be absolutely shocked if he at any point claimed that there was any kind of... Yeah, exactly. And it's worth noting, I mean, if we're going to talk about this period, that one of the other things going on with the Chinese Communist Party, which was, at the time was full of Koreans. A lot of Koreans were in exile because they opposed the Japanese occupation, and it just was not safe to be anywhere near the Korean peninsula at the time. So they went up to Manchuria, where they joined the Chinese Communist Party. And Stalin, at the time, declared that all of the Korean partisan resistance to the Japanese were actually Japanese spies, on the explicit basis that they all look alike. And he actually put out a hit on Kim Il-sung, who had to go to the Chinese Communist Party and get them to vouch for him so that he could get his name taken off the hit list. So, I mean, just if we're talking about these great moments in leftism with the coalition governments, yeah, exactly. I am absolutely not shocked, Shakespeare, that Mao has not said anything resembling that. We're talking about the glories of the coalition governments and all the wonderful sort of cross-class shit that was going on at the time. Then let's talk about how your boy Stalin wanted to whack Kim Il-sung.
Mao did everything he could to not have a violent revolution. And the same with the Bolsheviks. The Bolsheviks wanted to have democracy in Russia. They wanted an elected government. And so they joined a democratic uprising against the Tsar. The Tsar was toppled. And after that, they wanted to end the war. And they were leading strikes and protests demanding an end to the war.
Yeah, I mean, and also, you're not going to tell me that that Lenin had any illusions about the place of violence in any kind of revolution, even like sort of his halfway sort of a revolution where you kind of lead it in order to slow it down. Yeah, I mean, well, no, I don't know. Were you here for the part where he was naming the white nationalists who got arrested on January 6th? in the same breath as, like, Asada Shakur and the Black Liberation Army. Oh, as horrifically bad as it is 1 a.m. I am sorry, I have to turn into a pumpkin now, or I guess into a seagull or something. So thank you so much to everybody who has shown up, everybody who's participated. I think I'd like to continue with this on Friday when we see each other again at 11:30. And if you enjoy the stream, please consider paying for the stream, which you can do by using the tip command or by becoming a patron. And all of that is going to go right now towards the crowdfunded translation project, which is Alexandra Kalantai's Social Basis of the Female Question. Yeah, exactly. That's true. He didn't even get the right government that they toppled. Yeah, he's just so full of shit. He's just so full of shit. Have a good night, everybody. See you on Friday.